Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to the Hearthstone tournament recap. Talking about the top decks, talking about the top players from the last week of tournaments. So, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? On to the top players from the North American server. We have the winner of the final Manor Grind Friday Night Swiss tournament, which was a little sad to see go. They've been doing this for about a year now, and I used to actually run them, and sometimes did attendance on them, things like that. So it's a bit sad to see those go, but oh well. Let's hope that we get more out of Manor Grind and also out of tournaments coming into the future. Now, the winner of the final Manor Grind Swiss tournament was Barusa. Then we had from Top Deck NA number 22, Eversition? I'm probably butchering that. If you're in the comments and you actually know how to pronounce this, please tell me, because I hate it when I can't pronounce people's names. I'm gonna go with Eversition. Anyway, and lastly for the Zotac Hearthstone NA Cup number 17, we have Perky Cloud. So, since it was the last one, let's start with the Manor Grind Friday Night Swiss tournament, who Barusa actually won, and he was playing Control Warrior, or Warrior Control. Now, Warrior Control is a very, very slow deck. Its entire principle is setting up your mid game so that you can flow into late game with lots of health and time and just kill them with win conditions. That is the entire deck in a nutshell. Now, as for the win conditions, we do have Alexstrasza, Baron Geddon, Grommash, Ragnaros. Mid-game wise, there's a lot of mid-game legendaries actually in this particular deck. We've got Karin, Sylvanas, and Black Knight, all very, very good in different situations. Karin is a bit weak to silence, but then if they don't have silence, he's amazing. Same with Sylvanas, and Black Knight's just all around good against things like Druid, which you can have really hard matchups with sometimes. As for the rest of it, we are running the full Enraged set of Armorsmith, Frothing Berserker, Acolyte Pain, Cruel Taskmaster, 2 elves of all of them. The 2 Frothing Berserkers are interesting because generally Kolkron Elites are run instead of Frothing Berserkers nowadays. Frothing Berserker fell out of fashion a lot because of things like Hunter and Miracle Rogue. Miracle Rogue can either just sap a really, really pumped up one, or just kill it, and it doesn't apply any pressure, and that was a similar story when it came to Hunters. But Hunters is a little less popular, but Miracle Rogue's even more popular, so I'm not sure about the Frothings, but apparently it worked in this particular situation. As for the spells, completely standard suite, again running 1 Brawl. Now, the Brawl fell out of favor for a long time, and now it's come back in, and I think that's entirely because of 2 things: Stealthed Auctioneers and Shaman. Both of those things are very, very difficult to deal with. Shaman fills the board, so generally they're going to get a totem out of their Brawl, whereas the Stealth Auctioneer gives you a chance that their Auctioneer will die and they can't just draw a million cards out of it. As for the weapons, pretty standard: 1 Gorehowl and 2 War Axes. Now, onto the Zotac tournament, which Perky Cloud actually won the NA one. Now, as usual, Zotac is a multi-deck format, so I picked 1 deck, and this happened to be the single most interesting one. Priest Control. At least I think it's Control. It's weird. I'm gonna be completely honest. This is one of the strangest Priest decks I have ever seen. I don't even know what the aim of the game is here. I think it's early board control into late game win conditions. I think it's really weird. Like, if we just go through the deck quickly, we've got a massive amount of late game in Alexstrasza, Ragnaros, Faceless with Karin. That's a lot of late game. But then we have Injured Blade Masters, Cruel Taskmaster, Crazed Alchemist, which can flip a fully healed Injured Blade Master and can also deal with totems, actually. Deals with Manatite Totem really well. Wild Pyros are pretty standard because you're running all those cheap spells. Mad Bomber, Mad Bomber and Wild Pyro. I guess the whole idea is that you can play Mad Bomber and then heal up anything on your board that gets hit by it, and it could just deal with a couple of different things against Zoo. It's pretty good against Zoo. It's like Wild Pyro 3 and 4. So I can see why it's here. It's just very confusing. Although keep in mind this was a 3-deck format, so you could bring this in against aggro, anti-aggro priest, that is possible, or anti-shaman priest as well. It's a very, very interesting blend. Now, as for the actual spells, the spells are more or less pretty standard. 1 Pain, because they're just useless against some decks. 2 Deaths, you need them against all decks. And Holy Smites, Holy Fire, Circle of Healing to combo with your Injured Blade Masters, No Arcanine Soul Priest in this deck though, that's very, very interesting. Thought Steal, Straight Draw, Holy Draw by AoE. The no Arcanine does make this deck quite AoE light, actually. But then you've got Mad Bomber and Wild Pyro, so it's kind of... It's one of these decks which I would really, really like to see in action. And I'm probably going to go and hand this to Mod Counter, who's the priest specialist from Acebreakers, and see what he makes of it. Because he's played a lot of different priest decks, and I've never seen a priest like this before. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it to him, and then see what he makes of it. But anyway, on to the EU. So, we only had 2 tournaments from the EU. Notice I removed the ESL ones. This is not because I wanted to. This is because finding the results for the ESL tournaments is next to impossible. You can try. Their website is really, really clunky and almost impossible to navigate unless you really, really know what you're doing. But anyway, so from EU we've got Top Deck EU 22, which was run by Venetis, and Zotac, which was won by Zozus. So we only have one deck from the EU, from Zotac, and this was Zozus, who was playing not Token Druid. Obligatory typo mistake. Yeah, this happens to me a lot. Obligatory typo mistake. This always happens in tournament recaps. This is not a Token Druid, this is a Ramp Druid. Whatever, anyway. So Ramp Druid's entire philosophy is they play a lot of big drops, and then they use Wild Growth to increase their tempo so they can put down these big drops earlier than your opponents can normally deal with them. Now, the Wild Growth's a negative card advantage, but the fact that you're playing bigger things than your opponent kind of makes up for it in the end. So let's go over some of the more interesting things in here. We do have Cenarius and Ragnaros, not just one, which is what we normally see. We're going full late game here. 2 Ancient Allures, Cairn is the mid game generally, and the early to mid game, because of Innervates, is the Druidal Claws, Azure Drakes, a Stampeding Kodo. Stampeding Kodo is very interesting. It's good against Shaman, it's good against some of the Token Druids, it's very good against Zoo actually. It deals with a lot of things that are really pesky, like young Priestess, and also just things like Harvest Golems, so they just become Damage Golems, Direwolf Alphas. There's a lot of low attack stuff in that deck, which are really irritating to deal with, and Stampede and Kodo will take out probably 3 cards against Zoo. As for the rest of the stuff, we have 1 Harvest Golem. That's an interesting tech in Ramp Druid. You don't normally see Harvest Golem in Ramp Druid. 1 Ooze, no Harrison, lowering the curve because you have Ancient Lures for draw, and the Yetis. Now, Yeti is legendary when it comes to Innervates. The Innervate turn 2 Yeti is almost unbeatable by a lot of classes. Not entirely, but pretty close to it. Especially against Priest. Turn 1 Yeti is more or less good game against Priest. But as for the rest of the deck, it's pretty standard Ramp Druid, but just with a couple of weird tweaks. As I said, the double win condition at the end, Stampede and Kodo, which from what I understand has actually been seeing a little bit of play. I know that Masan has been looking into this as well on his stream. He's been looking into the 1 Kodo. Same with the double Fund Roar. Double Fund Roar is a very, very interesting thing. I do believe this came from Reynad originally, where instead of running the 1 Force of Nature Savage Roar, it's running both. To sort of increase the amount of burst damage you have at the expense of being sort of at the mercy of drawing multiple copies of each of them. So it's sort of a give or take, do you want the consistency of bursts or the consistency of playing the fair game, so to say, where you don't just burst them to death. It's a very, very interesting variation on the Ramp Druid, and Ramp Druid has not been as popular as Token Druid recently, and since DreamHack actually. So it is interesting to see that these Druid decks are starting to become a little bit more diverse. Anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or anything to say, put it in the comment section below. If you want to come chat to me, I'll put Manor Grind's Teamspeak in the description. As for now, thank you all for watching. It's Jotto, signing off.